results for the last round of the World Sportscar Championship at Magny Cours. Rob Widdows and Andy Wallace with you for the end of the World Sportscar Championship as we know it. The series has been axed by FIA, and he drives the number 8 Toyota in this, the last round of the championship at Magny Cours. And as we watch, the cars are going round on the parade lap behind the pace car, and remember, it is a rolling start in sports car racing. Peugeot's at the front of the grid as usual, and the drivers starting the race will be Philippe Alliot and Yannick Dalmas in the two Peugeots. Those, of course, are cars number 2 and 1. Car number 2, we understand, is going to lead the race. That is the team tactic from Peugeot. And behind them, the starters will be Christophe Bouchou in the third of the Peugeots, Jeff Lees in the number 7 Toyota, Andy Wallace in the number 8 Toyota, and Alex Caffey in the Mazda as the race gets underway. And Andy, already problems for you.
Well, as the green light went on, my car was handling fine, no problem. I was tucked right up behind Jeff Lees, and about halfway around the first lap, I started to get a gear selection problem. I don't know where it came from or really what caused it, because I even made the point of doing 2 warm-up laps before the race, before going onto the grid, and I had no problem whatsoever. But suddenly, the gear shift was very sticky in second gear, and I couldn't get it out of second gear.
Big cloud of blue smoke from the Peugeot there.
Yeah, somebody's trying very hard on full tanks, and obviously left the braking just a fraction too late. He got away with it though, no problem, didn't lose any time.
So already the race has something of a pattern about it. We've got Peugeots out there first, second and third, and not even a Toyota in the picture yet.
Well, quite often the Peugeots blast away at the start when they see the green light, and then after about the first 3 or 4 laps we stay about the same distance away, but certainly looks like they're going very quickly now.
Let's go back to this gearbox problem of yours. I mean, there was no warning of it, just suddenly totally stiff.
Yeah, I mean, race drivers always have excuses, but I came out of second gear, or I tried to come out of second gear, it wouldn't come out. I forced it as hard as I possibly could, and the next thing I knew, it was in 5th. I thought, okay, maybe it's me, and then every single corner I came to where I needed second gear, I couldn't get out of second. And eventually, I couldn't also get out of 6th either at the end of the straight, so I had to stop.
You came down, I believe, at the end of the long straight, stuck in 6th gear. What was the result of that? It must have been quite exciting.
Well, you rely very heavily on the gear shift working, because as soon as you brake, you need immediately 4th, 2nd, 1st for the hairpin. If you don't get that, you don't get the deceleration you were expecting, and you run wide at the corner or you lock up the front wheels.
Right, well, while Andy Wallace is on the radio to the Toyota pit to tell them about his gearbox problems, we have the number 2 Peugeot, Philippe Alliot, out in the lead from the number 1 car of Derek Warwick and Yannick Dalmas, followed by Peugeot's 3rd entry this weekend at Magny Cours. That is the car driven by Christophe Bouchou and Eric Hellary. Very successful in French Formula 3, Eric Hellary, and he impressed a lot of people with his handling of the Peugeot here at Magny Cours. And it's worth noting at this point that Derek Warwick and Yannick Dalmas are driving a brand new Evolution version of this Peugeot sports car. Andy, it's not the prettiest car in the series, is it?
No, and actually I'll have to correct you there, because I believe they didn't start that car. They opted to start the old car. But yeah, the new Evo 2 Peugeot is probably the ugliest looking sports car I've ever seen. But there again, if it's quick, it quickly becomes pretty.
That's absolutely right. They didn't race the car, but they certainly drove it in qualifying. And a fascinating machine it is. Yes, ugly, but technically, of course, this could be a test bed for the Peugeot F1 program.
Well, there's an awful lot of technical equipment on that car, with the power steering and the automatic transmission and the traction control. And obviously, yes, if it works on this car, it could easily be used in Formula 1.
So to recap then, Peugeot's 1st, 2nd and 3rd, and at this point you are trying to communicate your problem to the Toyota pit.
Yeah, well, having done 3 or 4 laps, not being able to get out of gear, I realised we wouldn't be able to finish the race like this. So I got on the radio and said, look, I've got to come in, I need lubrication on the gear shift. I got a reply from the pits saying, yes, come in, we're ready for you. And all the mechanics can actually hear that too. I came into the pits, and when I got there, I saw that Jeff Lees was already in the pits, which is very strange, because for sure the mechanics would have said, no, don't come in yet. And what had actually happened is that Jeff had come in unannounced, and they immediately pounced on his car, thinking that he had my problem.
And I think we are going to see some pictures in just a few moments of exactly what did happen. Andy, on the screen here, it looks so easy. Right, here we have, that's the Jeff Lees Toyota, number 7. Who by this stage has got something around his feet, as we've heard. His drink bottle is flailing around by his feet. So we've got Jeff Lees and Andy Wallace both on the radio to the pit saying we need to come in. More of that later, but Andy, It all looks so easy on the television, but this is a quick car on a quick circuit, isn't it?
Yes, sitting here looking at the TV, it looks like the cars are doing 2 or 3 miles an hour. Yeah, here we have Jeff Lees coming in the pits. Now he's coming in, and the mechanics are waiting for me to come in. They know that I've got a stiff gear linkage. They're going to pounce on him and start spraying the gear linkage. He doesn't want that because his drink bottle's come loose and gone underneath his throttle pedal. So I think he's going to try and stop them, hit them, whatever he has to do, and get the drink bottle out of the way.
Right, now let's see if we see your... Yes.
Yeah, and they're waving me straight through, which is really strange for me because they said to me come in, and now I'm having to do another lap. So I'm scratching my head, and meanwhile the Mazda's now catching up, and it's pretty close behind me. And I still can't get any gears.
Now this is all a bit dramatic. We see, it wasn't Glenn Waters, but one of the Toyota crew there frantically waving you out. So this is bad news for Wallace, isn't it?
Yeah, well now I'm completely confused, but I think, well, okay, if they want me to carry on, I'll carry on. It looks Jeff Lees here. He's still got the back of the bodywork off. I think he's telling them to put it back on. He wants to get back out there again and try and catch up with the Peugeots.
Meanwhile, here we are with you, Andy.
Yeah, I still can't get the gears, and in the end I tried desperately hard, but there's no way. Something has got very tight in the car, and with a bit of luck now I should be able to come in if Jeff gets out the pits quickly.
Now, this looks like a close run thing, because that's Jeff just only getting away now after having all sorts of mechanics doing things that he didn't want them to do in the first place. Yeah,
knowing Jeff, I shouldn't think he was that amused with all that.
Luckily, we did not hear the language inside the Toyota. Anyway, right, well, while the Peugeots are still out there in first, second and third places, tremendous drama in the Toyota pits. Jeff Lee's in to have his drink bottle removed from under his feet, but they think he's got a stuck gearbox. And Andy Wallace still out there trying to find his gears and trying to find a time to come into the pits and tell them exactly what he wants doing. Now, remember, only 8 entries here at Magny Cours. I think I'm right in saying this is the smallest field of the year.
Yes, I think it is, unfortunately. It's a real shame because, okay, so I'm biased, but these cars are very exciting to drive and they are very, very good to watch. And if only there were a few more of them, I'm sure we'd have a lot of spectators. Yes, finally they're allowing me to come in. They've got the Canon WD-40 ready. Looks like they could use it on the door at first, get the door open. When they did spray the gear linkage on this occasion, it was fine then for the next 25 laps.
Now, you're sitting in the car here, Andy. What does it feel like to be sitting here when you want to be out there?
Well, you can just feel the seconds ticking away. All the tension before the start of the race, when you saw the green light, you were going, you wanted to race. But now you're sitting in the pits wasting a lot of time. We're not wasting as much as it looks because obviously we can now refuel again and get some new tyres. So it just puts the pit stops out of sequence. But obviously we are losing some time.
And you obviously can talk to everybody on your radio while you're stationary like this?
Yeah, they can hear what I've got to say. But once I told them what was wrong with the gear shift, then they immediately fixed the problem.
And they're still fiddling about at the front. Now, what's happening here?
Well, they actually have to take the front nose cone off to get the front wheels on and off. The wheel arch clearance is so tight that it's not possible to do with the nose on.
So we've had WD-40 on the gear linkage, 4 tyres and fuel.
Yeah, and a clean windscreen. And my blood's boiling by now. I want to get back out there again.
Tell us what it's like inside one of these cars, Andy, briefly.
Well, we're lucky at Magny Cours here because the temperature is about 4 or 5 degrees C, but the last race in Suzuka we had nearly 40 degrees C, and that was very hot inside the car, something like 60 degrees inside the car.
That, of course, a big difference from Formula One. Very quick car, but much hotter inside, much less comfortable. Well, we're going to be back after the break for the rest of this World Sportscar Championship race. Join us then.
With the carbon fibre brake discs and also a lot of downforce, so it is very, very tricky to pass.
Now, this proved to be something of a battle here, didn't it?
Well, I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I hope the spectators did too. It's probably the only thing they really saw during the race. I had a fairly good dice. It's Alex Caffey in the Mazda, and he's a very respected driver, and because he's in front of me, he's allowed to drive wherever he wants to, and he had all the insides blocked and he was weaving everywhere, and no, it was a very, very good dice.
And there's your teammate. Now, I don't think it is still Jeff Lees in the car, or is it?
Yes, it is, Jeff.
It is, that's right. Still the first stint for Jeff Lees, lapping, I think, a Spice there in the background. Now, you know what it's like to be in that Mazda stroke Jaguar, don't you? I mean, you know the layout, you know what it's all about to be like in the car in front of you, so to speak.
Yeah, I did drive that car in qualifying at Le Mans. 91. It has a left-hand gear shift, which is unusual for a sports car. All the others are right-hand. Also, the gear shift is a very long gear shift, and I'm sure they've improved it since I drove it, but it was very easy to miss a gear. So if you're pressured by somebody behind, you could easily make a mistake.
Right, well, we're going to come back to that battle, I think, between you and Alex Caffey in the Mazda. Now, Alex shares that car with Maurizio Sandrasala, with whom you have done a lot of racing in the past, haven't you? Oh, hang on, we're in the Toyota pit now. That's the T car in the background.
Yes, I'm not sure what they're doing there, but yeah, that is the T car.
And we're still with Jeff Lees, who at this point, really, you should have been racing with him, shouldn't you?
Yeah, well, yeah, I suppose so. It's unfortunate with the gear shift problem. We did lose a lot of time to the other car in the pit whilst that was happening, especially with the 2 pit stops.
One thing that we do see a lot of, Andy, is the leading cars, like the Peugeots, having to lap the back markers.
Yeah, although there's only 8 cars, the 2 cars right at the back of the field were lapping considerably slower than we were. And this course has an awful lot of corners, so it's quite easy to get stuck behind a car and lose maybe 4 seconds a lap, which is a lot of time. So you have to try and get through the traffic as best you can.
Some scary moments too, I would think, because
luckily at Magny Cours it's not quite as bumpy as some of the other tracks. Now I'm very close behind Alex Caffey. One Peugeot has just passed us both, but we have another Peugeot behind. I saw him, but I'm sure Alex Caffey didn't. So at this stage he just thinks it's me behind, and I'm trying to pass him and he's trying to stop me passing him. The poor Peugeot behind is trying to pass the pair of us, and really we shouldn't be in his way because we're a lap or so down on him. But because there's a lot of traffic, it's very easy to have a misunderstanding. And I hope we can get the camera turned around. Yes, this looks pretty difficult because now Alex Caffey's trying to block me in. At the same time, the Peugeot has taken us both, and he didn't make contact. That was quite lucky.
It was pretty close there, wasn't it?
It was pretty close. I can assure you it was closer from where I was sat than where we're sat now. But unfortunately, the television loses a bit of that.
Now look at this.
Yeah, Alex is obviously just catching the inside, make sure I can't go down the inside. But I'm pushing him pretty hard, and with a bit of luck, should be able to get by sometime.
Everything happens pretty quickly, doesn't it, in this sort of car? I mean, you're right under his rear wing now. You lose downforce, don't you?
Yeah, unfortunately, the long straight is preceded by this very fast 4th gear right-hand corner, and I can't follow any closer than that, because if I do, I lose all the front downforce. So I have to leave a gap and try to get momentum towards the exit of the corner. And again, it hasn't worked. The gap that I had on the exit of the corner has stayed the same all the way down the straight. We have very similar power outputs. So I'm a bit stuck there. I can't pass into the hairpin, which would be the obvious place to pass. I can close up under braking, but not actually get past.
Noticed Alex having a look in his mirror at you there. He's obviously very, very aware of your presence at this point. But as you point out, you're still not really much closer to him, are you?
No, well, every time you go into a corner, you lose a little bit coming out, and especially on the slow corners on acceleration, the car in front can always get the power on just a split second before you, which means you just pull that gap. You have something like 700, 750 horsepower, so a gap opens up very quickly in a short time.
Now, in a way, this is even more difficult for him because you're putting the pressure on him. He's got you hounding him, hasn't he? So.
Yeah, and it's even more difficult because my car's quicker than his at this point. I think we're about a second and a lap quicker than him, but because he's in front, he's obviously dictating the pace. But I'm looking everywhere I can to get by, and it'll be there in a minute. I'll get past.
Good dice, Andy. Good clean dice.
I enjoyed it thoroughly, yes, because unfortunately with only 8 cars there aren't too many. Oh, and there he's missed a gear, and that's allowed me to come through. So after all that pressure, he did miss a gear.
And you pull away pretty rapidly after that.
Yeah, and now with the gear shift lubricated, the car was handling very, very nicely. And in fact, at this point, it's now starting to lap quicker than the other car of Jeff Lee's, which is quite useful.
How easy is it, even for a professional like you or Alex Caffey, to miss a gear change in one of these?
Well, if everything's okay and together, you shouldn't really miss too many gear shifts. But if you do get into a battle and you end up being on a different part of the circuit than what you'd normally use, it is possible to miss a shift. And the shifting is done so quickly, particularly on the downshift. If you're in 6th gear and you come to the hairpin, for instance, and you want 1st gear, there's no time to go through all the gears. So it's a kind of reflex action. I usually go from 6, 4, 2 to 1.
Is the Sandrasala Caffey Mazda. Now, pit stops absolutely vital in sports car racing, aren't they, Andy? I mean, if you get this wrong, well, the whole of the rest of the race can be affected.
Yes, that's right. And the pit stop is governed really by how long it takes the fuel to go in. the fuel tower has to be a certain height and the pipes can only be a certain diameter. So you just feed the fuel in as quick as you can, but it still takes something like 30 or 35 seconds to get a whole tank full of fuel in. The rest of the thing, the driver change, the wheel change, the windscreen clean, should all be done before the fuel.
Now you've won Le Mans for Jaguar and now you're driving for Toyota. How do the two teams compare? I mean, is Toyota as slick and as efficient as it appeared that Jaguar was?
Well, TWR Jaguar team have an awful lot of experience, and it was really good driving for them. They are a very slick team, as you say, especially at Le Mans, where the pit stop work is very, very important. But the Toyota team learned an awful lot last year and this year, and they're getting better all the time.
There's a change in the order there. In fact, we now have Warwick and Yannick Dalmas leading from Bouchou and Ellery. So that's a change in the top three of the Peugeots there. All still, of course, the Peugeots, but different driver pairings coming to the front of the field. And I think we've all been pleased as we watch your very self driving there, Andy, that Warwick got the championship.
Yeah, it was very good. Nice now we've got 2 world champions from England this year. That's great. I'm very happy for him.
But of course, as we watch the Peugeot pit stops and the amount of money and the amount of equipment that Peugeot have here, I mean, they really ought to have won this title, oughtn't they?
Well, they've done a superb job, really. Everything they have is very top quality. They've obviously worked very, very hard. And that's a very good car, and it would give a lot of people in Formula 1 a run for their money, I think, if they decided to go that way.
I think this is Eric Ellery in the car now getting a push start, and he manages to stall it. Now, how easy is it to do that?
Well, I guess if you're nervous, you could make the mistake, but all I do is when the car gets dropped off the jacks, I just hit the throttle and drop the clutch. And I don't care how much dust is flailing around, I want to get out of the pits as quick as possible.
Well, he is inexperienced, as we've said. He's done a lot of Formula 3, but this is very, very different kind of power, of course.
It is, but he's doing a superb job.
Now, tell us a bit about the circuit, Andy, the 29 Spice. We just saw a glimpse of it in the yellow Spice there. You came up behind him many, many times, I think, in the race.
Yeah, and every time I did, he looked to be driving totally flat out. He's sliding all over the road. I mean, he's obviously enjoying himself in the car. But unfortunately for him, well, and us too, the difference in speed between that car and our car is so great. There were times in fifth, he can't lift. He's just got to go and hope that the other car's seen him.
And he was
that was close.
He was up on the curb, he just touched the grass, and that's, of course, the Peugeot race director, Jean Todt, watching that little incident, I would think, with his heart in his mouth.
Yeah, he nearly lost the car there.
Yeah. Well, we're about halfway through this, the last round of the World Sportscar Championship, and we'll be talking to Andy Wallace a bit later in the programme about the future of sports cars, and in particular about Le Mans in 1993. Do stay with us, we'll be right back after a short break. Particular reason why they've swapped the drivers about, do you know, or is it?
Well, this is not really my decision. They decided that's the way around they wanted to do things. Fine, no problem.
Here comes the Italian-driven Spice into the pits. That's the car of Randaccio and Stingbrace. And these Spice Fords are really beginning to look a bit old-fashioned now, aren't they?
Yes, they are, but we really need them, and it's a shame.
Dalmas and the 2 young Frenchmen in third, and Jeff Lee is now running in fourth, and you in fifth, Andy.
That's right, although now I've changed to David Brabham, so he's running out there.
Your car.
And then obviously the fuel being the longest thing to go in, that hurts you. You've got to have a very good system with the seat belts so that they all click together very quickly. If you have somebody of vastly different size, you find that the lap strap seat belts don't fit, and then that's a big job to adjust those.
How quickly can you get comfortable? By the time you're into gear and down the pit lane, you're comfortable. Yep.
Well, you dive in the car, you do the belts up, and then basically you look through the windscreen, and when you're told to, you hit the starter button. Quite often you'll still maybe put in an extra bit of tightness on the shoulder straps when you're going around.
We all imagine, I think, at home that people like you, Andy, do everything terribly efficiently, and it always goes according to plan. I bet it doesn't always, does it?
Well, there have been times where, I mean, something's happened with the belts, or your drink tube comes out, or here, because the ambient temperature is quite low, it doesn't really matter too much. And it looks like we've got a Peugeot on hot tyres coming up behind a Peugeot that just came out of the pits. Should be quite interesting. No problem.
Great noise.
Yes, very nice.
I think that's what I'll miss most of all about this championship, is the noise of those engines.
Yeah. They've got everything, really.
It's just a really terrific package.
Yes, it is. They've done a really good job. There's a lot of technology on this car with traction control, which at this track seems to make quite a big difference. It makes most difference in the wet, but even in the dry on the first gear corners, you can just nail the throttle in the Peugeot and it won't spin the wheels.
And this is now a routine pit stop, I think, for the leading car. This is the car of Derek Warwick and Yannick Dalmas. And I think Dalmas getting into drive, I think.
Yes, I think so.
But wait a minute, there seems to be some sort of a bit slow on that stop there. Couldn't quite see. Maybe it was. I think it might have been the fuel man was a bit slow there, or he was late. Anyway, a slight delay.
Yeah, it did look like there was a fuel problem there. He couldn't get the fuel hose off or something.
Well, that is still the leading car, Derek Warwick, Yannick Dalmas, and that's been a sort of an up and down pairing, hasn't it? Really, they've had a couple of little mishaps there with Yannick not being able to get his seatbelts done up properly.
Yes, I believe they have had one or two problems, but they won the championship, so it couldn't have been so bad.
We've got a spice battle going on here now, so the Peugeot's got to thread its way through a private battle between the two spices. Shouldn't take long.
Well, this was interesting because although there were two cars going around considerably slower than the rest of us, they were really in a very big battle of their own. Yes, each time you came behind them, obviously they're busy with their own battle, and it's very difficult for them to see where we are.
Well, the Peugeots have fairly swiftly dealt with what... Whoa!
Ooh, you say that. I think that was a classic example. You don't expect somebody to come by there, and that did take him by surprise, and the Peugeot had to brake quite hard there to miss him.
I'm pretty sure it's the youngsters, Bouchou and Ellery in the first of those Peugeots there, who tried the move down the inside.
Yes, and he probably thought better of it. Better to brake rather than to hit him.
It was, yes. They've just been passed again by Alia Baldi car, but it was them the youngsters who tried that. It was a bit ambitious, that, wasn't it?
Well, yes, although having said that, if you get stuck behind a car in that particular point, that's where your 4 seconds has gone. You have to follow him all the way through turns 1, 2 and 3 onto the back straight, and you do lose an awful lot of time.
Must be a bad moment, Andy, though, because you just don't know if the car in front has seen you, do you?
No, but I think that's where experience comes in. You have to decide.
Ahead of their teammates, Derek Warwick and Yannick Dalmas, and the new pairing of Christophe Bouchou and Eric Hellery. So that is the position here at Magny Cours as we go into the last few laps. Feeling tired by this stage, Andy, or are you so fit that really it's not a problem?
Oh, super fit, no problem. No, we were helped here by the cool ambient temperature. If it was a lot hotter, it would be very busy here and very hot, but this race wasn't too physical for us.
There's Derek Warwick, I think, bringing the number 1 car into the pits. Certainly looks like Derek's helmet there, we'll soon see. And nice to have a Brit up at the top of it. You're good mates with Derek?
Oh yes, yeah, no problem. Looks like he's in, but I don't think that's a scheduled stop.
No,
I think he's got trouble because he didn't get out straight away.
That is definitely Derek Warwick in the car, and the Peugeot mechanics looking fairly distressed about this. They're going to take the rear bodywork up, I think. Yes, they are. Now, what could be happening here? Difficult to see exactly what they're working on, Andy.
I don't know what's happening technically, but what's happening on the track is that we're going to catch them up now and hopefully pass them.
I know that Derek gets a bit... He can get irritated, I know, on these occasions. We've seen him sometimes this year. And there is Jean Todt having a look at what's going on. Derek talking inside the car, waving his hands about. But of course, as you rightly say, a chance for Toyota to get the top 3. Into the top 3.
Yes, it could be so. It must be very disappointing for Derek. The car's been going very well all race, and it's quite a late stage in the race for something to go wrong. But looks like they know what it is.
It looked very much like a man with a cigarette in his mouth. Surely not. It was a man with a white something in it. I don't know. It must have been a pencil.
Yeah, it must have been a pencil.
Absolutely, yes. But obviously, furious activity in the Peugeot pit. Neither Andy nor I could see at that point exactly what they were working on, but certainly something on the engine, almost certainly electronic, I would think, because it's not terminal. They're going to get the car back out onto the circuit. As we look now at the third of the Peugeots, number 71, driven by Bouchou and Ellery. And what a good race these two have driven. They haven't got nearly as much experience as Warwick, Dalmas, Alio and Baldi. Ellery certainly done some fine races in Formula 3, but both of them inexperienced compared to the others. And really, I think we could say they've hardly made a mistake all afternoon. Done a good job for Peugeot. Lights on at this. Whoops! I think that's Warwick back out. A bit shaky under braking there.
Yeah, it looks like he locked up the rear wheels there. Oh, yeah, that is Warwick. Yes. So whatever it was is now fixed, and he's got the job now of trying to catch back up again.
And lights on here, the Jeff Lee's car. This is presumably just to say to people, look out, I'm coming.
Yes, actually it was getting quite dark. It looks like it's getting very dark now. It's easier for the slower cars to see if you have got the lights on, but there are times if you leave the lights on for the whole race, you might flatten the battery. So,
and he's coming right up behind you, Andy, I think.
Yes, I don't remember this bit. He is coming up very close behind, and he's got a Peugeot behind him too, so I don't know what's going to happen here.
Now, have you seen him by this point? Presumably you've caught a glimpse of him in your mirror here, I would imagine.
It doesn't look like he's lapping faster though, does it? So
he's not making much,
to sit there.
But he's got a Peugeot right up behind him, so this could be interesting. Now we're onto the straight, very quick here.
Yeah, this is the fastest point on the circuit, and breaking into a first gear hairpin, so it's the easiest place to pass if there is an easy place. And yeah, he's got through.
Does.
Yeah.
Now
well, no retaliation there.
What's happening here?
I'm not exactly sure.
This is about 12 laps to go, isn't it? This is roughly 12 laps to go, I would say. Yes, almost exactly 12 laps to go, and it appeared that he snicked rather easily inside you there.
Yeah, actually, it's not me in the car now. It's David Brabham. I can see through the windscreen. Right. So obviously David didn't want to hold up the other car, and he just let him slip through.
Right. So apologies there. That was David Brabham in the number 8 Toyota, as Jeff Lees passes David and gets away, but the Peugeot still stuck behind the Brabham Toyota.
Yes, and he's obviously not going to make any mistakes in passing the Toyota, so he's just going to be very careful and wait till there's an opportunity.
Now, Jeff Lee's an interesting man while we're on the subject of Toyota, Andy. I mean, he's been around for years and years, hasn't he? And a lot of people say, you know, he's still quick and still fit.
Yeah, well, a lot of people make a mistake saying he's been around a long time, he can't be very quick anymore and he can't be that fit, but don't make that mistake. He is both very fit and very quick, and he has an awful lot of experience. He gets some good results.
Well, we're into the last lap here at Magny Cours, and we have had some tremendous drama because the car that led for so long, the Peugeot of Warwick and Dalmas, has been in the pits for 5 laps. After racing 95 of the 118 laps, Warwick spent 5 laps in the pits having the black box changed, and that's dropped his Peugeot, the number 1 Peugeot, down into 5th position behind both the Toyotas. So we did not get the perfect result for Peugeot. However, they are 1st and 2nd, and that was good news for you, Andy.
Well, at least it led a Toyota onto the podium, and so Jeff Lees and Jan Lammers will be up there in 3rd place.
Quickly ask you, what about Le Mans 93? Will Andy Wallace be there?
Well, I certainly hope so. There are 3 long-distance races next year, the Daytona 24 Hours, Le Mans 24 Hours and the Sebring 12 Hours. I hope to get a ride in all 3 of those, but I need something else to fill the season out.
Well, thank you for climbing out of the Toyota and into the Screen Sports studio, Andy, and we wish you all the best for 93.
Thank you very much.
So here we are then at the end of the last race of the season, and also, sadly, at the end of the championship. All right, we haven't seen huge entries, and all right, we haven't always seen an exciting race. But these sports cars are tremendous to watch. They're very quick, they make a wonderful noise, and this is it, the end of an era. As we see the sun go down over Magny Cours, and the Peugeot boss, Jean Todt, looking justifiably proud and happy after a tremendous season in which the Peugeot team really has dominated everybody else. And there we see it confirmed, the car of Alliot and Baldi first, followed by the youngsters, Bouchou as championship, and you can see it really was a walkover by Peugeot Talbot. So it's Rob Widows saying goodbye from Magny Cours, and thanks to Andy Wallace as we watch the usual victory celebration.